Everybody knows is the SEO guy. How is your use of Google and just search changing right now?
Changed dramatically. I was a skeptic when ChatGPT came out that it would be something that could threaten Google search. And with Google, with all the talk about personalization they've had for like 15 years about personalized search results, you and I both know they're essentially the same for everybody.
You had to build another company going forward where you couldn't rely on SEO at all. Like there was no organic traffic. How would you be thinking about the channel mix for that business going forward?
It's definitely time to create a YouTube channel.
How do you think of just as the first step of SEO keyword research?
These searches are so insanely different than what we're used to. They're not even the same paradigm.
What tactics do you think may have been particularly relevant in the past that are maybe coming back around again today? Hey, I am super excited for today's video. I had the chance to sit down with Brian Dean, the founder of Backlinko, and just catch up on all things SEO, content marketing, and AI in 2025. I think the best part about this conversation is Brian has been out of the game for a little bit. At least he's been kind of taking a break, focusing more on tennis than building marketing programs. He sold his last company, Exploding Topics, at the end of 2024, and he's been out of Backlinko for a few years now. So I really just wanted to know, how is he seeing the changes in the world right now? How is he thinking about SEO differently than he did before, and just generally building a business, building a brand, thinking about content marketing? We had a pretty wide-ranging conversation, and I'm really excited for you to hear it. Let's go ahead and dive in. Hey, Brian, welcome back to Backlinko. I'm excited to catch up on everything that's new in the SEO world and with you. I'm first just curious, what have you been up to since it's been like, what, 6 months or so, maybe a little bit longer since you sold Exploding Topics, your second company? What have you been up to? How's life?
Life is good. Life is good. I've been pretty much spending a lot of time on the tennis court. It's something that I was really into before I sold, and now that I have a little bit more time, spending more time there. I'm also doing some work for Exploding Topics, which is great that I still get to work with the team there. And even though it's really been integrated into Semrush now, the platform is now as part of the App Center, and the blog is kind of running on its own. I'm still contributing there as much as I can.
Yeah, I actually saw you did an interview or had a conversation with the video host over at Exploding Topics, and he was talking about AI and SEO, and you had mentioned your tennis that you've been doing a lot recently, and also dealing with an injury, and how you've been kind of leaning on ChatGPT for like how to recuperate from that injury. I'm curious. We talked about it a little bit like 6 months ago when we last had a long conversation. I'm curious, how is your world changing with the advent and like just continual growth of LLMs, ChatGPT or Claude, seeing more AI reviews in the SERPs? Like it's evolving at such a rapid pace. And I'm just curious, like, how are you, who everybody knows is like the SEO guy, how is your use of Google and just search changing right now?
It changed dramatically. And I was a skeptic when ChatGPT came out that it would be something that could threaten Google search, because I saw them as two totally different things, where you would use ChatGPT for certain tasks. For example, you wanted it to create a poem, you wanted to create an image, you wanted to generate something. That was sort of the idea behind generative AI. And then you would use Google to search because it's so much faster than ChatGPT at doing that. And it didn't have AI summaries yet, AI overviews. It was just featured snippets and the search results, same as it was 10 years ago. More recently, mostly because of the historical memory that ChatGPT in particular is incorporating into their models, I'm
Yeah.
using it more and more, because it's just so much easier to literally be like, remember this thing we're talking about? Boom. And with Google, with all the talk about personalization they've had for like 15 years about personalized search results, you and I both know they're essentially the same for everybody.
Yeah, maybe
Sometimes
localized, but
yeah, exactly. Definitely localized. Though I will give them that. If you're in a different country or area and you search for a term that's ambiguous, they'll pump the one that's closer to you. But if you search for the same thing like 50 times and you search on the number, you click on the number 3 result, all 50 times, the 51st time it's still going to be number 3. They haven't even got to that level of personalization where there was the SERPs were really customized for you. Very much. They were to a certain extent. So the last 6 months for me have been huge for using ChatGPT. One, because of memory, and two, because it proactively searches so much more than it used to. And that is the
yeah.
game changer. It basically took perplexity and just put it into the app. and just crush them. So that's
So
kind of
I think so it's crazy because like when we last spoke, you had that skepticism still. So how much has changed just in the last 6 months with your use, your understanding, and your kind of belief about what the future of this technology looks like? It's just changing so fast. I, for myself, also similarly am really kind of happy with the way ChatGPT specifically works with memory. Like it just is learning so much about me and my like the type of information I want to consume, how to present it to me, and I can just see that continuing to accelerate going forward. I haven't really noticed it as much from Google if they are doing it. I can't imagine they're too far behind. Like the technology is definitely there. And I specifically love that ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity, all these different systems are like forcing Google to innovate and they are seemingly struggling with how to do it, but it's causing the whole industry to evolve much more rapidly than it was before. One question I wanted to ask you is like now that you can see the way these systems work and where we're trending, if you had to build another company like Backlinko or Exploding Topics, like primarily based on just information that people consume, and then you want them to eventually convert into a course or buying a product. If you had to build another company going forward where you couldn't rely on SEO at all, like there was no organic traffic, what channels would like how would you be thinking about the channel mix for that business going forward?
I would be thinking more in terms of personal brands than channels because there's not that many channels left. Honestly, like if you look at back in the day when I first started Backlinko, for example, in 2013, there were a lot of channels because blogging was more of a distributed ecosystem where if you got a mention on someone else's blog that was a big blog, that was massive and they could send a lot of traffic your way. Or again, mention in someone's newsletter, for example, that was huge too. Now it's more like there's only a few platforms left, and they're like a handful. There's Google still, and YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter X, and now the LLMs. There really aren't that many channels to go after. So I wouldn't be looking at channel specific stuff. Instead, I'd be like, how can I build a brand or take advantage of a brand that's already doing well on one or more of these platforms? So it's a little bit different of a perspective because the channels are so few and so saturated. It's hard to be like the best brand on LinkedIn, for example. But if you have a personal brand that can stand out on all of these platforms, that's how I would do it. So it'd be a mix of that and also trying to optimize for LLMs because I do think there's a lot of traffic to be had there. If you can't use Google, I would still go use traditional SEO stuff for sure. But if I couldn't, then that will be replaced with more optimizing for LLMs.
Yeah, I completely agree with their approach. I think the challenge that I'm seeing right now for the work that I'm doing and also every other company out there is like, how do you prioritize? If before your main focus was like as an SEO was we do keyword research, we create content, we build links, and we have this impact in the company that we work for our clients or our in-house team. Now it's like, all right, you have to start be thinking about this not just on Google, but on YouTube and LinkedIn and Reddit. You potentially have to be in all these different places. How do you think we should be thinking as SEOs, as content marketers, about the skills that we've learned in the previous era of SEO? Obviously, for you, like creating great content, like what are the skills that we've learned that feel like they're going to be the most relevant going forward as we're trying to evolve our strategies and just how we approach work and reaching new customers?
I think the number one skill will be creating content for humans and machines. In this case, it's just going to be a different machine you're optimizing for. So instead of a search engine, it's going to be an LLM. Because I think the best SEOs in the world are those that aren't so focused on title tags, but they're also not just let's write a bunch of good stuff and the Google will find us and take care of itself. Because that's naive and that's not really the case. The best people in SEO are the ones that can combine those two things and can see both perspectives. Like when a search engine lands on this page, they're going to like it because of X, Y, and Z. When a human lands on this page, they're going to like it because of X, Y, and Z. I think it's going to be very similar for LLMs in the sense you're going to have to write helpful content. It's going to be a lot harder to optimize for because, like you said, Lee, we don't have the keyword research model anymore where you can go through that same process. But if you have helpful content on your site that LLMs will want to use to train on and also to cite when you ask it a question, you're going to be in good shape. If you just write great content and hope for the best and hope the LLMs find you, it's the same sort of perspective that if I just write great content, I'm going to rank number one in Google. It never really works that way, and I don't think it's going to work that way with LLMs.
Yeah, and I wanna break that down. So I think we both definitely agree that, like, the first step of traditional SEO is keyword research, and I'm trying to think of how is that evolving? Like, even if I just think of how I if I'm using an LLM, how my prompts are much longer. Sometimes I'm writing out a full sentence. Sometimes I'm turning on voice mode and asking, like, talking at a full paragraph about the thing that I want help with. So it's no longer best SEO tools or how to build a content strategy. It's like, how do I build a content strategy for my e-commerce brand where we're trying to reach this type of customer? Um, how do you think, like, as far as being able to use our existing tools, or not even just our tools, we've got our Semrushes of the world, our Google Search Console, like our ways of getting traditional keyword data to still try and understand what are people searching for, but how do we kind of shift that perspective into more thinking about topics, potentially, but like not throwing it away and saying like, don't use keyword research, or worse yet, I think go ask ChatGPT to do your keyword research for you. Because yeah, you do want some sort of basis on like people are actually searching for this. There is a demand for this question or this problem, and I need to create content around that topic. So how do you think of just as the first step of SEO keyword research?
Yeah, I agree with you that it's less about keywords and more about topics for sure, because those like exact phrases that people are typing into Google, it's not like they're just moving them over to ChatGPT. Like you said, Lee, these searches are so insanely different than what we're used to. They're not even the same paradigm, because not only are they just phrased totally differently, they're really long. Like you mentioned, they're very specific to everyone's use case. Or they might say specifically, I want the best SEO tools except for X, Y, and Z because I already know about those. Like things that we wouldn't even know to optimize for back in the day. So for me, I use keyword research and a tool like Semrush as more like ideas of what are people interested in? What are people searching for problems for? And that they will search in ChatGPT as well. Like if someone's searching for like how to cure knee pain or how to, dress better in the summer, those people are going to be just asking the same questions ChatGPT. Those are things that are evergreen that will always be asked. The big difference is how they will be asked in ChatGPT, because person's going to say I'm 5'11" and blah blah blah, all these personal details, and you can't optimize for that, nor should you. But if you have relevant content about that, then you have surface area where you is a chance that you could be the reference and the citation for that answer in an LLM.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I want people to realize that like the fundamentals of a lot of what we're talking about and thinking about going forward are still important. I keep seeing so much about like SEO is dead, or like the future of SEO is AIO or GEO or whatever variation. And I want people to remember to stay focused on the stuff that works and just evolve the strategy. So keyword research isn't dead, but it should be evolved in this direction. You're still trying to understand what are people searching for, and how can you reach them. And I think SEOs in particular, compared to every other marketing department, because everybody within the organization is trying to figure out how to deal with AI, because it's not just coming for SEO, it's coming for everything. But we're particularly well situated to figure out what people want, based on what they're searching for, doing that keyword research, and then also the way we craft our pages. So the next step after doing keyword research, like how would you think about just creating content for going forward? You mentioned the importance of being human focused. Like, is there anything, if you look back on the way you approach Backlinko content early on, that you would change right now in terms of just overall format, multimedia, stuff like that? Like that being the second step in the SEO process, creating content.
Not really, actually, because I think that you don't want to go all in on LLMs and just pretend Google's dead, because it's far from dead. So I would still write for Google first, and then that authority will hopefully translate to LLMs. The big difference is, a big factor for content that ranked in Google was like the engagement metrics from users, right? Click through rate, dwell time, how long they spent on the page. But if you're part of a summary that is an answer from a prompt in an LLM, it doesn't really matter how compelling your content is, which is kind of weird to look at it, but it's true. So if I was just optimized for LLMs, my stuff might be a little more on the more personal side. So it might be more like my perspective is this is it, and here's something I did. And that way the LLM will be incentivized to train on that. If you just have generic content, it's already been trained on it 100 times, already seen the same thing 100 times. It's harder for you to sort of get in there. So I would still write like I did in the early, maybe even more in the earlier days of Backlinko, where it was more like, hey, I'm trying this thing and here's how it worked. And here's like 10 strategies that no one's talking about that I'm using. That way, when someone is, prompts an LLM and says, hey, Tell me 10 SEO strategies that I can use to optimize my site. They're going to get the ones they've seen 100 times. And they're going to say, no, 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 I want some new ones, some fresh ones. And it's going to go into the training data there. So for me, I wouldn't write totally different because Google's still going to send you likely much more traffic than LLMs at this point. So I wouldn't just throw the baby out in the bathwater yet for years. But also I wouldn't want to be too like authoritative and generic because I don't think that's going to help you get cited unless you're like a huge brand already.
Yeah, and also I think just that kind of content was always boring, and I think people are really I'm personally excited about the future of content marketing to be a lot less boring, a lot less, "How do we just tinker around the edges to create the best content?" I love the skyscraper technique that you laid out, but, like, I think the internet is ready to move past that because it was something that worked really effectively, but it wasn't necessarily always the best result for the user. Now it's not about just gamifying the metrics, it's really about how can you create the most compelling piece of content possible that reaches the person reading it where they are, and I've been really, really happy with kind of the foundation that you laid over the years building Backlinko in terms of our ability to continue performing well because of the way that your content style, like your writing style, was already positioned to do well in this era, and the investments that you made in data studies that you were, I think, just interested in like the link potential of them, and also being able to reference them in your post, but like being able to mention we did this study, we surveyed these people, or we did an analysis and we found this hard data point, and now we're going to talk about the rest of our strategy, and we're also going to confirm it with like we have this much traffic, we're getting these kinds of results. Like that kind of content seems to be very important to LLMs because they're looking for novel information. They're looking for, yeah, the 10 strategies that nobody's ever seen before that might be relevant. And you're the fact that you set that foundation kind of unintentionally to work really well for the AI era is has been really great to work with. And now for us, it's like, how do we double down on what was working before? How do we just like align that and bring back more of those data studies where one, people really want to know like what's happening with CTR, what's happening with AI reviews, like how are marketers thinking about spend, like what are all the things that we can do to bring more to the conversation that's relevant both for our content on the blog, but also just people want to talk about it on social. They want to have a positive association with your brand, where like you brought something new and helpful to the conversation. So it's something we're trying to do, and I would encourage just every other company out there to like find that angle for their business where it's yes, get the SEO value out of it, but also kind of leverage it as much as possible beyond SEO with the other channels that you're interested in.
Yeah, for sure. And get mentioned on other sites as much as possible because you will that they'll train on that and you will be one of the answers. So for example, like best SEO platforms that Semrush gets mentioned across the web, the more likely they are to be included in that because ChatGPT and is just training on that and seeing over and over again that Semrush is listed on
Yeah.
these lists. They're more likely to show up when someone uses it in a prompt. And those studies
Yeah.
will be a great way to do that because it grabs attention like nothing else.
Yeah, and, we talked about keyword research and like, building content, and I think link building is the other big piece where, obviously, Backlinko has a really, really high authority score. Pick your other favorite metric. It's one of the top websites on the internet because of how many links it's acquired over time, and it's a solid foundation for us to continue growing on, but as far as the way you're thinking about links going forward, so it's more not just optimizing for page ranking, you wanna be mentioned, like, is there anything in particular that you think you did really well that, like, aside from the mentions, so it's what tactics do you think may have been particularly relevant in the past that are maybe coming back around again today? Like, I'm, for example, curious about guest posts, but on, like, the higher quality end and thinking about stuff, but maybe SEOs don't do that anymore, but maybe they should again.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lee. It's not about page rank so much, but those links probably are a factor when an LLM is deciding whether to use site A or site B as a source. Because a lot of times the training data is gigantic. Like, just look at best SEO platforms. How many perspectives do you think they have on the best SEO platforms? Like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. So they have to distill that down to a couple. And whether you want to get mentioned in the answer, that's where those mentions across the web can help. But if you want to get cited as one of the sites that's talking about the best SEO platforms, I think links are going to be a factor they use because it's just a great signal. Like Google's been trying to get away from links almost since the day they started using them because people started gaming them right away and they're like, we need to find something else. So they tried social signals and click-through rate and dwell time and a bunch of other stuff. And they have, of course, de-emphasized links over the years. But it's just a good signal. I mean, it's just no other way about it. So if I'm an LLM and I want to know if someone's asking me a question and I want to cite 5 different sources, I'm not going to choose 5 arbitrarily. I want to choose 5 that have the most trust and authority. You get back to the same OG problem that Google had. How do you determine trust and authority? And it's from links. So I think links will still be a huge factor for you getting cited as as a source for answers. And then, like you said, Lee, the other element will be like, how can you get people to mention you online a lot, your brand, to be included on these lists? So when someone does prompt it, they're training on, this tool is the best, or this service is the best for this specific use case. That's old school PR, guest posting, going on interviews, getting mentions, and just creating something that's worth talking about. And that's usually the easiest way to do it because then you don't have to go one by one to get all these mentions. If you create a cool industry study or do something interesting or create a great product, people will naturally list you on these things. And then you just need to add fuel to the fire.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful that it opens our kind of boundaries of what's possible, what is worth doing. I think in the past, like SEOs were focused. If we're gonna do link building, like we have to get a link. If there's no followed link at the end of the tunnel, then it's not worth our time. Whereas now, if the SEO team or the traditional SEO outreach team is thinking about, I want to go get high quality, relevant mentions from as many places as possible. How do I do that? Like one, I'm gonna do my traditional prospecting and find my opportunities, but I'm going to give a second look at the sites that don't link out, or I'm going to look at the sites that maybe specifically lean on affiliate partnerships. And I should plan to either collaborate with that team or figure out how to set up a program that maybe it won't be directly attributed to me, but if there's all of a sudden 50 blog posts out there that are listicles talking about how awesome your product is and you got some links out of it, but maybe a small percentage of the total mix, but now you have 50 new pieces of information that are being fed into the algorithm and influencing when your site is gonna be referenced if somebody's asking LM. Yeah, so I hopefully it just, like, opens up our perspective of how we should be operating, kinda breaking out of the silo. I'm overall, like, really excited about not just thinking about we do the blog posts and the other teams do the other things, the affiliate team, the paid team, the social team. Like, it all needs to kinda come together because the best SEOs like you said earlier, they're the ones that are not just focused on the title tag, they're the ones that are just overall thinking about growth. How do we reach people where they are? And um, I think we're just going to keep seeing it more in that direction. So um, I'm curious. I wanted to talk a little bit about video because obviously this is one of your first videos on the new Backlinko channel, and you created an amazing blog initially, and then eventually a really successful YouTube channel with over 500,000 subscribers. How did you think about video, and what was the transition from creating blog posts to video? Because I think right now so many different teams have opted not to invest in it, including myself, because of like the challenge of getting started. Like it's a different process. You need to the production looks different. You need to get a camera and think about editing. So people have underinvested in this channel or this medium for a very long time. Like, how did you begin that transition, and what value do you see it having going forward?
I started it because, yeah, there was a sort of a supply and demand opportunity where no one was talking about SEO and YouTube. It was so early in that there wasn't even a lot of business content. It was before the gurus started like going crazy on there. So there was an opportunity to just teach SEO in a very like the videos in the early days weren't anything special, but they did well because there just wasn't any competition in terms of SEO content on YouTube. And people would search on YouTube and it would come up. I ranked number one YouTube for SEO for years. On YouTube videos would rank and still do rank well on Google. But like you said, Lee, there's still an amazing amount of upside somehow with video because it's like it seems like how is that possible that the explosion of YouTube in particular, how is it possible there's still upside, but there is? But the opportunity, I think, is actually closing a little bit because so many brands are freaked out over AI and they see YouTube as an AI proof space. So they're sort of flooding there saying, oh,
Mm.
if Google is going away and we can't rely on that anymore and like content marketing from the traditional writing generic blog posts is going away because AI can do it, then what's left? And there's a lot left, but to a lot of people, it's YouTube is the like port of, safety for them. So I do think there's going to be a flood of videos on there coming up from especially in the B2B space, but there's still a ton of perspective. So I still see a tremendous opportunity to create a YouTube channel and a presence on YouTube because there's still a supply and demand issue. Because the demand is so insane that it's almost hard to meet it. Even if there's like 10,000 new channels a day, it's still going to be hard to meet it because there's just such demand for content on YouTube, especially in specific niche topics that your brand might be perfect to write about. Like if you know how to like solder microchips or something, that channel can really stand out because there's a lot of people on there want to see that, and there's probably not a lot of good channels on there. So if you have a blog about that, it's definitely time to create a YouTube channel about the same thing.
Yeah. Well, so I'm curious for you, like, we're essentially we need starting from scratch because a lot of the videos you created for Backlinko are fairly out of date at this point. A lot of them still rank well because the engagement signals I'm sure are great, and some of the content is evergreen. But how do you think as a company, as an asset like Backlinko looking to get back into it, or essentially now like starting fresh, how should we approach it so that we can be successful, so we can stand out from the noise, realizing that there's a lot more competition than when you started. There's more companies starting to flood in, as you said, because they're trying to look for ways to deal with declining organic traffic.
Yeah, the first thing I would do is create a first video as fast as possible. Usually I'm more like strategic about plan this and then 6 months out you do this. But I think with video, it's one of those things. It's a tricky format, like you mentioned, Lee, about you got to get a camera and a mic, and then there's editing, and there's thumbnails, and there's a title, and the title and the thumbnail have to match up, and then the video has to start strong, and you need to marry all these things. Like it's something like you almost have to learn to swim by jumping into the deep end a little bit. So I would find one person on the team who's gonna be, like, in charge of the video. It can be a collaborative effort, of course, but one person should be in charge of doing videos, and then from there, you're gonna learn a lot more from your first 10 videos than anything I could share, because it's its own thing. Even if you're good at making videos, which I've had this experience a lot where I've worked with people with my personal channel back in the day who were amazing at making editing videos. Like they would, you see those videos from events and they have like the flowing camera over the table, people talking, and then
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
the drone footage, and like it looks unbelievable. But it's not necessarily good for a YouTube video. So a lot of times they lack that like intuition about what works well on social. And a lot of times it's actually more gritty, a little uglier, a little more personal, that works better than the super polished look. So I would definitely start creating, like, I would plan out the first 2 videos or 3 videos about what you want them to be and get those out as fast as possible. And then you're gonna learn quickly how to make a video, what works well, what doesn't. And then specifically, the hardest part is what works well for you and your audience, and that no one can really teach that because you need to go out there and start making videos, and then you're going to figure out, oh, this worked. Wow, this video we thought was going to do poorly did great, and this video we thought we're going to crush, no one watched. And
Yeah.
it will happen like 100 times. It'll almost always be the opposite of what you think, but then eventually the light bulb will go off and you'll be like, oh, now I see now I see this like perspective, and you can just double down on what's working and eliminate what's not working.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful advice, and I'll definitely take it on board. I think for me, like the challenge of we like if you've really nailed down how to handle a blog content production process, you've got your brief process, your research process, you know who's going to be writing it, the editing, the screenshots, all of that. Like you know, like every piece you're putting out is going to be top notch. Like that's the bare minimum. And when you go to a new medium, it's you're learning something new from scratch. So you don't know exactly how the format works. You don't know what level of production you need to reach for versus like can it be rough around the edges. um but I'm learning very rapidly, like it is just about reps. It's like just get in front of the camera, record, share the idea, figure out how to edit it, redo the intro. Like I think with content, with blog posts as well as videos, you can always republish. You can always with a
Yeah.
blog post you can change the last updated date and refresh it, same URL. For video you essentially can as well. You just need to get into the swing of things so that you can learn from the algorithm, see what works and what doesn't. No one's really gonna remember what doesn't. And just in general, like the quality thing, like that you want some like basic, you want a clear camera and good audio, but like it doesn't need to be the fanciest studio in the world. You don't need to be the most professional. Even like unrelated to Backlinko, when I'm working on my e-commerce brand and doing videos, like I tried to do a photo shoot, like an expensive five-figure photo shoot with models and everything. Like that content that came out of that was significantly underperforms the 30-second video of just UGC creators trying on the product, talking about it to the camera, and telling people to go check out the website. Like I would have
Yeah.
been like, oh no, this way is I need to spend 10,000, like have that as a baseline, and then maybe this other thing will work. But like people just want to consume the content that like meets them where they are, that like
Yeah.
and it appeals to them, and they don't really care if it's the most polished thing in the world. Like it just needs to be relevant to them.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's been my experience too, is that the pipeline is actually kind of similar in a way with the blog posts to videos. Like you come up with a topic, you determine whether there's demand for the topic, you create an outline. Like it's still written to start with. You know, the best videos are still written scripts to start with. Then you write a script and then you film it, then you edit it, and then it's ready for production. You get the graphics together. So like that pipeline is not that different. The difference is because it's a new medium that you're trying for the first time. With Backlinko, because everything's so dialed in, because you've been running it for so long now and you have the process dialed in, it's like a marching band. Everything's like boom, boom, boom. But now you got to be like a jazz band. We're improvising every
Yeah,
day. Every video
it
that you
feels like
create
that.
is starting from scratch. Yeah, that's good. That's how it should be. Because you how could you have a process for something that you haven't done 100 times yet? So it's definitely a different feeling, a different skill set, a totally different approach. And some people like that early days, like everything changes every day, and some people are more about scaling. And
Yeah.
it's, so it depends. If you like scaling, you can get there eventually. You can obviously scale a YouTube channel to massive numbers. But when you're first starting out, it's about creating those like first 5, 10, 15, 20 videos. And then you're going to have so many takeaways, interesting nuggets, you're gonna actually, and it also is practically you're building an audience as you go, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not building an audience until you start publishing videos. So you once you start creating these videos, not only for learning, even if it was just for learning, it would be worth it. Even if you just put them out there and they went to the ether and you got information back, it would still be worth it. But the good part is a bonus is that as you're creating these videos, people are watching them. People are writing comments. I like this. I didn't like that. Or what about whatever. They're subscribing to your channel, they're giving you views, they're boosting you up. So you also build that audience over time, and that can only happen as you start pumping out videos.
Yeah. I think for that, like trying to lay out that story, especially if you're trying to pitch this to your boss or a client, like it doesn't need to be, we need to spend $500,000 on video over the next year and it's gonna have this impact. Like you can be a little bit scrappier with it. Like we did an analysis on the keywords that we care about right now, and videos are showing up 25% of the time. We really think like this is something we're missing out on. But we don't have the pieces in place right now. We don't know exactly how to do this. Like, let's go and do our first two videos. Let's get the jazz band together and try to roll out the first ones and see what we learn. Hopefully, get some traction and then go forward. I think sometimes people maybe CMOs are reluctant to try something, or there's just like a culture where you can't fail internally. But if you can tell the story, set the stakes at a reasonable level, and actually like make a good shot at the initial effort, then you're probably going to be successful. It's might not be the easiest thing in the world, but I think it's definitely worthwhile and just critical. I think people want to. They're not consuming blog posts anymore. Like the way I consume way more YouTube videos and just long form and short term videos than really any other content format,
Yeah.
including podcasts. So I'm finally catching up to what I consume. For yeah, I, I think people are past. Like, when was the last time you read a really long blog post?
No idea, man. It's been
The
forever. And that
master
used to
of
be
the
like
long form
hardcore.
blog post. Yeah, you used to, but, like, it's not the way we consume information anymore. Like, there's
Yeah.
so
It's
many
not.
other options that are more personal. Like, you when you're reading a blog post, like, especially if you haven't, like, bookmarked their feed or whatever you did back in 2013.
Yeah,
If you
our
can like see
yeah.
a host like that you care about and believe like actually knows what they talk about, like that's gonna be way more persuasive than any sort of written format.
Yeah, the only problem with video in that sense is that you can't measure it nearly as well. So that
Yeah.
CMO you're talking to, you gotta be like, as crazy as this sounds, forget results. Not because there won't be any, but because you're gonna have a hard time drawing a straight line between a video and an outcome. It's so difficult. But you can usually tell them is like, look, this other channel in our niche or in our adjacent niche gets, let's say, 200,000 views per month on their videos, all said and done. Like, do you think it'd be bad if we got 200,000 people seeing our brand every month?
Yeah. Seeing our
Yeah,
products, seeing our workflows? Probably
yeah,
not.
and, like, in a very memorable format, much more than a blog post, in a
Or an
format
ad
that's much more
or
visceral.
yeah. Or yeah,
Yeah.
or an ad on Google search or LinkedIn. Like it's I think what marketers what we need to be doing and like telling our executive leaders like it's okay if everything isn't measurable. Like the fact that we got into this weird world where everything was tracked with cookies and like we could try and dial things down perfectly, like um that was always kind of a weird well, it was a historically new thing in marketing compared to did the magazine ad work, did the TV ads work, did all of the traditional formats that people mastered and built really great businesses from. We just somehow over-index to this, like it has to be measurable, and if it's not measurable, it's not worthwhile. Yeah, I think if you can go find this company is doing X amount of reviews and like you can still forecast, you can try to work with the finance team and build out a model. We think that of 200,000 views, if we're able to reach that, like it will convert at a similar percentage as a display ad or something. Like you can still model out expect an impact and not just be like, "Oh, we don't have no idea how this is gonna impact." Like, hopefully people just like our logo and remember us. So you can both tell the story like, "This is gonna be harder to measure, but we think we can at least come up with a band, a low to high end of what we think is possible."
Yeah, 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 it depends on your company, right? Like, if you're a company that is a big modeler of outcomes and wants measures, then measurements for everything, then like you said, there's nothing wrong with doing some back of the envelope math. But if you're at a company where it's more like, just try it and then, tell me how it goes on that platform, then that's a good situation to be in. It's pretty rare though, because like
Well,
a lot of
so well, the thing is, I think we're like being forced to do that more as SEO specifically right now because if you look at Backlinko's rankings over the last 6 months, they're higher than they've ever been before, which I'm proud of. But traffic
yes.
as of March is trending down because AI reviews really ticked up. At
Mm,
the low end estimates, the tools right now, Semrush is estimating like a quarter of our keywords are showing an AI review. I think that's low, because what we as the tool companies need to figure out is how to account for the personalization. How do you account for what different experiences Google is providing to people that are logged in, especially when it's a more expensive search query like an AI review. It's not just the same result that they can show to everybody if they're trying to personalize it for you. So I think the number of AI reviews that are being shown is much higher than that. I don't have hard data on it. There are some tools out there a little more nimble that are kind of trying to figure this out, spoofing Google logins. But either way, I think they're showing it more, and I would be surprised if the trend doesn't continue. I'm
yeah.
kind of looking forward to the day where AI mode rolls out at least as like maybe not the default, but like choose one. Do you want traditional YouTube or traditional Google or AI mode. So it's happening, and we just need to be comfortable with like traffic is down. But if you look at the last 3 months, our impressions are higher than they've ever been before. So we've got
Well,
this decoupling of impressions and traffic, which means that we're still having an impact for the work that we did, and we just need to think about it differently. It's no longer we got SEO visitor to click on our result as much, and then they claim the website. We cookied them and figured out how they converted, and we got the credit for it. We need to tell the story that the work that we've invested in is not lost. It's just having a different impact now, and we have to change how we approach things going forward. So, I
yeah.
think even the
100%.
most data oriented companies need to be a little bit flexible with the fact that the data is changing.
Yeah, and it honestly wasn't even that great to begin with. Like, it was better than a magazine ad, which was I can't imagine those days of just hoping that it's like the old expression, half your marketing budget's wasted, you just don't know which half. That's always been true, and then, like you said, it wasn't true for a while, and now it's true again. But I don't think the tracking was that great to begin with anyway. It was better than, what we're gonna deal with in the future, but because of cookies. But even then, there were so many times where it's like first attribution, last attribution, how they even find you in the first place. For example, someone is watching short form video and someone mentions Backlinko by name. So they Google it and
Yeah.
they land on the page and then they sign up for the newsletter and they get cookies. So they came from Google, right? Not no, because they came from a short form video on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. Yeah. So it's even then it was a little bit hard to really know what was happening. So I was always a big believer in just like more like get a lot of impressions, get a lot of traffic, and then the rest sort of takes care of itself. And taking a step back from the Google traffic, like even though traffic's down because of AI overviews, it's still a massive number, I'm sure, compared to what
Yeah.
you could expect from
Oh,
any
well,
other
yeah,
platform.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, Google is by far the most important channel for Backlinko, but and if we're not slowing down on what we're trying to do is just trying to how do we maximize the value that we're getting? So if traffic is going down, but we're seeing how AI overviews evolve, and we definitely have not seen the final state of them in terms of how they do links out. Like they're gonna like Google as a platform needs to figure out how to not completely disincentivize the open web if they want to have information and even in ChatGPT, like, these experiences are evolving so fast, like, you could see the whole, like, "Which experience do you like better? Left side, right side?" Right side
Mhm.
has links out to we, I don't know, you were looking at best restaurants to eat. Best I was doing this, best Indian restaurants to eat in Philly, and it was like, "Here, we found this conversation on Reddit. We found this one on TripAdvisor. We found this," and, like, it did link out to these pages, um, which before, it would've just given me the bulleted list, and I wouldn't be able to click out. So I think it is evolving, and we need to continue creating the content to feed the algorithm, and then just getting it distributed as many places as possible. How can we take the research that we're doing for the blog, turn it into a video, turn it into short form content, write on LinkedIn posts, go be active in some way on Reddit. Like, don't try to do everything all at once, but, like, think holistically. Like, that is the whole search ecosystem now, and you need to at least consider how it all fits into your particular products or services.
Yep. And it
Um,
probably helps prevent you like, even just old school Google SEO, I think all that stuff helps you from updates, getting nailed from updates. If you look at the people that got hit the most from, like, the helpful content update and some others, not always, but a lot of them were just predominantly Google brands. They
yeah.
had really no presence off of Google whatsoever.
And I'm perfectly fine with like it's a painful process if like for the companies that built their not even businesses like if they built their livelihood around just one channel, like even if it was like the most well researched affiliate content about mattresses or plants or what like whatever category that they did, like the business was I expect to forever be rewarded from Google for this traffic. And on the user perspective, like I obviously as an SEO know when a site is ranking in the first position and the way they're organizing their top 10 list, the affiliate links, like I'm sure the one at the top is the one that gives 20%, the one in the bottom is the one that gives 5%. And I wonder if that had any impact on your ranking. So like I'm okay with the sites that were just building their brand around one channel going away. I think the companies that are actual brands that are doing PR and they're investing in video and paid social and paid search. Like there's a whole thing around here where if one channel gets hit, like it's something you need to deal with, but you're not out of business.
Yep.
Those are the more compelling companies. Those are the ones that like people actually want to be associated with and remember. It's the products that they buy, it's the clothes they wear, it's the gadgets that they buy. Like so SEO is just becoming more a part of that brand ecosystem where like, yeah, if you're gonna do link building, like think about how you're just trying to get mentions sometimes and not just optimize for the page rank algorithm so you can rank number one.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was always good advice, honestly, because then you weren't as reliant on Google. That was always the dream. Like, even when I started Backlinko, one of my goals was I don't want to be as reliant on Google. because I was with all my previous sites before that, my affiliate sites and whatnot. And I was stressed about it because I knew that I didn't have a real business. I had this website that could be eliminated within a day. But the funny thing is, because Google just sends so much traffic,
Yeah.
it's actually physically hard to like get other pieces of the pie to make any dent whatsoever. Even if you're crushing it on those platforms, like, you know what I mean? Even when I had like 500, I was getting hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube a month. It still was like 3% of the traffic that Google was sending. So it's really hard to like break into that. But I think even if you just want to rank in Google and that's still your goal, or in LLMs or wherever, that I always thought that was more helpful. And that motivated me to do it because I was just, an SEO nerd. So for me, I just wanted to rank number one for everything. I didn't really, it wasn't about the other platforms. It was more that, oh, if I do that, then Google will see that and reward me. And I do think there's something to that for sure. That
Yeah.
if you have these other things, you can survive if you get hit from an update, like you said, but also I think you're much less likely to get hit by an update because you have a
Yeah.
newsletter, you have a podcast, you have a YouTube channel, you have LinkedIn. Like Google knows that people are actually looking for you. You're getting branded searches in Google. People are actually searching for you as opposed to just happen to find you because you did SEO best. Those days are definitely, definitely gone.
Yeah, and I don't know, there's, plenty of discussion in the industry about, like, does brand search matter? I don't know what the exact calculation is in the algorithm, but, like, I don't see how it can't be a factor, at least, like, just as far as building a good business. I'm sure for you, when you were building the blog and selling courses, I'm sure a lot of people that ended up deciding to buy a course from you also watched the video, like, maybe they found the blog post first,
Yeah.
and before they decided to pull out their credit card, they consumed other content. So even if that wasn't, like, the first touch, it was a contributing factor a lot of times, I would imagine, for their final decision. So, I think people just like brands, and Google likes brands, and
Yeah.
it's the
LLMs
same.
will like brands, I think too, because
Yeah,
they have the same, like I said, they're in the same position as Google. You have they don't have 10 blue link SERPs, but they cite a limited number of sources, and they're gonna have to decide if 150 are saying the same exact thing, which five do we show? And that's gonna be based on brand, trust, authority, links, all that stuff.
yeah, and I think, I don't wanna go too far into it, but I think it'll be a video coming soon, and for people that wanna go look into it, like, really starting to understand how, the concept is vector embeddings, how Google and these LLMs are organizing all of the entities, all of the things, all of the businesses and products and ideas on the web into these clusters, and the things that are closely related to each other, brands can get attached into it. So, it just, yeah, it needs to be part of the mix and the plan. It can't just be as limited as before. But that that gets more into the weeds on the technical side of things that not everybody is comfortable with. I want to wrap it up a little bit, just by, I think you were, a lot of the content you created was, like, for beginners. I think a lot of people right now, if they're trying to build their business, they're thinking about getting into marketing or SEO specifically. Like, do you have any advice right now for somebody who is new, either new in their career or just new to marketing and, like, trying to figure out how to get started, how to approach things in the AI era?
Yeah, the number one thing is I would create a personal brand on a platform that you already are on, so you understand all the nuances, or one that you wanna learn about and get on, and that's your motivation to try it. Because by doing that, you're going to, first of all, just learn how these things work, and all these platforms already do have AI incorporated into them, and it's only gonna increase in the future. Like, we think of AI as like, we go to ChatGPT and we talk to it and it gives us an answer, and that is AI, but it's also being used in everywhere else. So the more you interact with it and learn how it works, the better. And the only way to do that is doing. So if you have a personal brand, it's a massive advantage because most people don't. And if you want to be a marketer, you can literally get a job almost anywhere by
That's how
saying,
I got
look,
my first job.
there
I
you
had a
go.
personal website, and it separated me from the group.
And it's amazing how few people will do the extra step and how much it makes I think people might underestimate how much it helps you stand out. Like, it's huge how much it helps you stand out. Like, I saw a stat a while ago that of all the LinkedIn profiles, only like 3% have posted anything.
Mm.
So most are just a static resume page, which is fine for if you're a banker or something, that's fine. Maybe it doesn't matter. But if you're in marketing, you gotta show you know how to market stuff. And
Yeah.
if you can't market yourself, how are you going to market a product? So I would say the number one thing would be create a personal brand. Like you said, it can be just a website, it can be just a TikTok uh, page, it can be just a YouTube channel. It can be just, it doesn't have to be like this huge multimedia Gary V empire. It can literally just be one platform that you're good at and and you do well on, and you're going to set yourself years ahead, not just practically because it helps you stand out, but you're also going to know more because you're actually doing it every day.
Yeah. I also think, one I was watching a podcast, or listening to a podcast the, the other day, and the conversation was, on, like, human to human marketing. And I think even though we're in the AI, like, a kind of rapidly evolving AI era, like, people are seeking out personal brands. They want to hear from other people that are actually doing things. It's not, I think the whole concept of, like, B2B has always been kinda weird because businesses don't buy from businesses. People that work at businesses buy from other people that work at businesses. And the more you can connect with people, the better. If it's for yourself, for your own personal brand, you're able to be just that much more influential. You did it with, Back and Co. and the blog, and then eventually your YouTube videos and all of the other interviews and podcasts and things that you did along the way. Like, I absolutely agree. It's super valuable. What do you think? So building a personal brand, and then the last question, like, what should we how do we avoid relying on these tools too much? Like, where especially if you're early on in your career, like, I'm worried about people seeing AI as, like, the shortcut to everything and not a way to layer on top of other experience or, like, real ideas and critical thinking.
I think the way is a good question. The way I look at it as is AI knows a lot, but it hasn't experienced anything. You're never going to know
Mm.
as much as AI, but you can experience a lot more. So that's your advantage. You can actually do stuff in the world and write about it, make videos about it, do podcasts about it. And that is your advantage over AI. So AI is an accelerator, but it's never done anything. It's never eaten pasta. It's never gone to China, right? It's never
Yeah.
stubbed its toe. It'll have approximation of what these things are, but it doesn't actually do it. So that's why when you ask it stuff, a lot of times the answers are incredibly boring because it doesn't really know what this is like. So your advantage is to go out there and do stuff. And if you're in marketing, do marketing, like create videos, or even if you're a big ads person, you know, create Facebook ads for a client for like almost no money to get the hang of it. And then the next one charge more and stuff like that. The more actual hands-on experience you have, the better, because you're never going to know as much in your head as AI, not even close. So you can always say I did this thing, and that's where LLMs will always kind of struggle a lot of times with these like unique use cases, or a lot of times when you ask it something that you already know about, a lot of times the answers aren't as great, right? When you
Yeah.
ask it something you know nothing about, you're blown away. Like, wow, this is so knowledgeable. But if you start asking it stuff, things you know, a lot of times you're like, man, this is not really true. It's not wrong, but it's not entirely accurate. And I think that's always going to be a little bit there on the edge. And that's where, your experience and can be a massive advantage.
Cool. I love that answer, and I think it's completely right. Thank you so much, Brian. This was a fun conversation. Appreciate you coming on and chatting with me.
All right. My pleasure, Lee. Talk to you later.